We started a startup incubator and accelerator in New Jersey. And the idea was we'll open up a co-working space, get some really smart people involved, um, have a great brand story behind it, because all of us really had started businesses. I was actually probably the youngest of the partners. All of us had started businesses. All of us had a lot to offer. And we were in a position where money wasn't the driver, so we had time to actually provide resources, provide advisory to these struggling startups in Jersey, and even provide them office space. And so we started a company called Juicetank, and it ended up being a 20,000 foot co-working space, startup incubator, accelerator. And the idea was this would be a channel to identify startups that we could potentially invest in. After that, in doing that, actually, a few things came out of that. Number one, we got access to the entire startup ecosystem, at least in our state. Number two, we were positioned as essentially the startup authority within the state. So therefore, we got access to legislators, we got access to the economic development corporations, things like that, universities. In fact, some of the university professors would host their classes at our facility sometimes just to get out of the classrooms. And then thirdly, we got access to startups themselves. We had our ear to the ground, so we knew who was working on what. And when you see 1,000 pitches every year, you have a pretty good idea what's trending and what's not, and who's likely to succeed and who's not. And over time, what happens is you look for patterns. And these patterns or common denominators become quite apparent. And so I would say that was probably the biggest learning out of launching a startup incubator, was understanding what those patterns were. And over time, when you review these pitches, you also understand what not to do. And so I was part of that for almost 5 years, essentially pro bono. You're not really getting paid. Your success lies really in the success of others. So a lot of these type of sessions of having meetings with startup founders and business owners, I was leading a lot of the entrepreneurs meetup groups and things like that. And so in a way, in a small way, I guess you could say, I was, at the time, it was my first hurrah actually being in the public spotlight as a startup guy. And so some would say I'm kind of like the startup guy in the state. And that was fun. That was fun. I got to see a lot, but I didn't like the fact that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't control my destiny. I couldn't speed up the process. I couldn't determine whether or not something was going to be successful. So naturally, that happened with some of the other partners as well. So we all decided, all right, you know what? This is fun, but let's build our own companies. Let's go on the other side of the table. Instead of telling people how to create companies, let's show them. And so what I did is my first company started as an agency, 99 Robots. And we initially started more on the technical side, building websites, doing WordPress plugins, things like that. But we've evolved into becoming essentially your traditional marketing agency that does, pay-per-click advertising for Facebook and Google, TikTok, Instagram, things like that, but also SEO and marketing strategy and launch programs for companies. And that, I would say, gave us some very unique insights because we could see the guts of every company, how they made money. And even though we were just providing a marketing service, for many of them, we were their lifeline. If we didn't show up to work, they're not making money that day or that week or that month. And so when you become critical in that sense, naturally you get to see all the leads that are coming through. You get to see how much money they're making off of that. You get to see what type of services they're spinning up to survive or to expand, things of that nature. And when you see 100 of those or 200 of those or 500, as I probably have seen by now, you are essentially getting a free education every few months into various different industries. And now you can apply that to your own startups. And so naturally, I realized I could go ahead and do really well in the product space, and especially in the software as a service space. We had already had our hands inside the WordPress industry for many years. So we had built WordPress plugins. So now have over 40 WordPress plugins that are doing quite well. So we said, all right, let's go build software products or just acquire them and then run them ourselves. And so when you have the marketing side of the equation, the difficult challenge for most people is the technology side because they don't speak that language. Luckily, I already was the bridge between technology and marketing. So I spoke the language. I knew what we wanted. I knew how to get the right developers in place. And so we built up a team to do that slowly but surely, always staying lean throughout the entire process. And it was evident from the beginning that we were going to build a portfolio. What was not clear is how long it would take to build a portfolio that we were proud of. Um, some things took way longer, years longer than they should have. And other things came quite quickly and quite naturally. And so now we've built up this portfolio where we have, 8 SaaS startups, we have 4 agencies, we have 40 WordPress plugins. So now things are starting to take shape. But, when I say now, that is an 8-year journey to make that happen. So nothing happens overnight, but it's really the culmination and the sum of all those learnings over time to build all these companies and make them all successful, even though they may all be tackling a different target audience, they may be in different industries. The fundamentals are all the same in how you grow a company. And so naturally, I guess you could say I'm a growth marketer, right? And I'll call myself a growth hacker or a growth marketer or whatnot, but that's essentially what I do all day is figure out how to grow company A or company B or company C. And so we could do this for clients, and then we could do this for our own businesses. Um, so it makes sense that we are always thinking about, hey, what else could we add into this portfolio? Now we're getting smarter and realizing that, hey, this portfolio needs its own services. And we need to figure out how to leverage the services that we've already built, where we provide for clients for our own companies, but then also how to get economies of scale. How do we go from 5 businesses to 10 to 15, and then be able to scale them all at the same time, as opposed to, hey, one's doing really well, but one's not. The other one's doing okay, but the next one's not. We need to be moving on all fronts for all businesses. And that's really kind of the stage that I'm at right now, in that, hey, things go well. They're doing great. I can't really sit here and complain about anything. But at the same time, I also know that, just like I've always known in every role I've been in, we're only untapping 10, 20, 30% of our true potential here. A lot of it is all about hacking ourselves, hacking our processes, and then optimizing, and iterating and getting better and better at what you do so that you're always striving to be the best at that one thing.